So ProPublica got a hold of a story that kind of blew me away. I think it was fascinating because it's almost in any other administration, man, it would bring down the president. This one doesn't really have anything to do with Donald Trump directly so much as his children, but it would have been a scandal that would have followed any other president throughout their entire presidency. Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka Trump got involved in a Trump Soho tower. And they were trying to get it off the ground. They were trying to sell units, and in their haste to make as many sales as possible, they overstated the success of the selling process. In other words, the speed with which you can sell these units really dictates the value of the units, right? Or at least it contributes to the value of the units. And so investors wanted to know, well, how is it going? How are they selling? What's going on? And Ivanka and Don both made erroneous statements that are borderline, if not direct examples of criminal fraud. And as a result, they had to settle on a civil case, 90 cents on the dollar. So for every dollar they got from these investors, they had to return 90 cents. And then I believe it's the Bureau of in economic investigations. So there's a branch in Manhattan, I don't have it off the top of my head, that investigates economic crimes, and they opened up an investigation into Don Jr. and Ivanka Trump, right, for criminal fraud. They were doing a full-on investigation such that the Trump organization hired multiple top criminal attorneys from New York to help them in this situation. Those attorneys went to the DA's office and pled the case, saying that, yes, our clients overstated the sales. They overstated the information, but this does not necessarily constitute fraud. Okay, the attorneys made their case, but the DAs weren't having it. The prosecuting attorneys were not having it. They continued with the investigation, and it looked as though they were going to move to an indictment until Donald Trump called in the cavalry. Mark Kasowitz, his attorney, his longtime civil attorney who represented him in hundreds of cases. Mark Kasowitz, who's been with Donald Trump for at least a decade. He called him in. Mark Kasowitz, who does not have any experience, or at least is not known for his experience in criminal cases, yet Donald Trump brought him in anyway to represent his son and his daughter. And what does Kasowitz do? He goes straight to the DA himself. He goes to Vance Jr. What's his first name? His last name is Vance. So he goes straight to the DA himself, the Manhattan prosecuting attorney. And magically, all of the charges are the investigation, because they hadn't got to a point of actual charges. The investigation goes away. Well, we wonder how and why. In the report from ProPublica, they stated that Kasowitz did not have any new evidence. He did not make any new arguments. In fact, they specifically said that Kasowitz repeated the same exact arguments that the criminal attorneys had stated earlier. So he's coming back to the DA's office to try to get his clients off the hook, but he makes the same exact arguments as the criminal attorneys, and voila, the investigation disappears. Sealed. Done. Turns out that Kasowitz actually made a $25,000 donation to the campaign, the re-election campaign of this name is going to bother me till I get it. I mean, I got the whole goddamn story in my head, and I can't think of the prosecuting attorney's actual name. But so Kasowitz comes along, offers him $25,000. And here's the thing. It first immediately seems like a quid pro quo, right? But the prosecuting attorney is a little smarter than that. And I'm getting to the real thing that I want to talk about, but I have to give you the background. So Kasowitz made this. Cyrus Vance, Cyrus Vance Jr. I had a filibuster long enough to get me the guy's name. All right, so Cyrus Vance Jr. is the the Manhattan District Attorney, and he receives $25,000 from Kasowitz. Kasowitz and Vance are smart enough to know that this is going to look like quid pro quo. So what Vance does, the DA, he gives the money back and says, I can't accept this donation because you have a trial in front of me. 6 months later, all of the charges are gone, right? After the charges are gone, after the case is sealed, or all the materials are sealed, 6 months later, Kasowitz gives him more money than the original $25,000. He gives him more money than the original $25,000 and proceeds to help him raise a total of $50,000 for his reelection campaign. I mean, it kind of blows me away how cheap our politicians really are. I mean, God, I mean, $50,000, don't get me wrong, $50,000 right now would be a huge help to me, but $50,000 for the sake of my integrity and for the sake of something that could come out years later and implicate me in a cover up of fraud and obstruction of justice. So Vance Curry, whatever the hell his name, Cyrus Vance Jr. I don't know where the hell Curry came from. Cyrus Vance Jr. Is now, being viewed through the lens of the entire nation as someone who took money in exchange for making an investigation go away, because Vance, he not only made the investigation go away, but he had to do so by overruling his own prosecutors. So it was not as though there was new evidence that this attorney Kasowitz presented. It was not as though it was new arguments. No. All it was he came in with the same exact arguments as the previous attorneys, but he came in with a $25,000 check. Oh, we don't want it to look like quid pro quo, so let me return that check and see me in 6 months. And then 6 months later, he ended up getting a total of $50,000. All on behalf of Donald Trump Sr. and Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka Trump. Now, somebody should, hopefully this will lead to a real investigation and charges being, if they have the evidence and the paper trail, charges should be brought up against the whole lot of them. But the problem with quid pro quo is that it's almost impossible to prove unless someone is dumb enough to say, hey, give me this and I'll give you that. But, it seems to be enough evidence to show that Donald Trump was able to make the fraud case against his children disappear into thin air. Meanwhile, average Joe schmuck, poor people like you and me, man, we can't even get out of a damn traffic ticket.